The warning sound filled the bridge of the patrol ship Starwind. Commander Zaraketh looked up from her reports as the noise got louder. Her long fingers moved across the control panel to turn off the alarm. The blue lights on the bridge went back to normal. "What is it?" she asked her crew. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt worried. Strange things did not happen often in this part of space. Lieutenant Vextai sat at the sensor station. His 6 eyes were wide as he stared at his screen. The colors on his scaly face kept changing from green to yellow, which meant he was confused and scared. "Commander, we have a ship on our sensors," he said. His voice shook a little. "But the readings are very strange. I have never seen anything like this before." Zaraketh walked over to look at his screen. The Starwind was part of the Galactic Trade Consortium. They kept peace in this area of space and helped ships that were in trouble. She had been doing this job for 15 years, and she thought she had seen everything. The screen showed a ship moving toward them. It was not very big, maybe half the size of the Starwind, but something about it was wrong. The energy coming from the ship was different from anything in their computer files. "Where did it come from?" Zaraketh asked. "I do not know," Vextai said. "It just appeared on our sensors 5 minutes ago. But Commander, there is something else. The ship is sending out a signal." "What kind of signal?" Vextai's claws clicked on his controls. "It is very old. The computer says it has not been used for over 300 years. And Commander, the ship says it is from Earth." The bridge became very quiet. Every person stopped what they were doing and looked at Vextai. Even the soft sounds of the ship's engines seemed to get quieter. Earth was a name that everyone knew, but no one believed it was real. It was part of old stories that parents told their children. The stories talked about a blue planet far away, where a people called humans lived. The humans were supposed to be very smart and very brave. They could live almost anywhere, and could make friends with anyone. But they could also fight better than anyone when they had to. The story said that humans disappeared from space over 300 years ago. No one knew where they went. Most people thought humans were just made up, like the ghost stories about empty ships flying through space forever. "Are you sure about this?" Zaraketh asked. "Yes, Commander. The signal keeps saying the same thing over and over. It says it is the Earth ship Odyssey. It gives a number and asks for help." Zaraketh looked at the screen again. The ship was getting closer. She could see it better now. It looked very different from other ships. The metal was a strange color, and the shape was not like anything she had seen before. Parts of it looked very old, but other parts looked like they were fixed many times with whatever the builders could find. "How fast is it going?" she asked. "Not very fast," said another crew member. "It is using old fusion engines. The power output is strange, though. It should not be able to go as fast as it is going with those engines." Zaraketh thought about what to do. If this was a trick, it was a very good one. Someone had built a ship that looked like it came from old stories and was pretending to be human. But why would anyone do that? And if it was real, she was about to make history. "Can we talk to them?" she asked. "Yes, Commander. They are using an old language, but our computers can understand it. Open a channel." The main screen changed to show the space where the strange ship was flying. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was speaking Galactic Standard, but with an accent that sounded very different. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Alliance ship Odyssey," the voice said. "We need help. Our navigation system is broken and we do not know where we are. We have been flying for a long time, and our supplies are running low." Zaraketh felt her heart beat faster. The voice sounded tired and worried, but also hopeful. It sounded real. "This is Commander Zaraketh of the consortium ship Starwind," she said into her communicator. "Captain Morrison, can you show yourself on our screen?" "Yes, one moment, please." The screen changed again. Now it showed the inside of another ship's bridge. The walls were gray metal with lots of pipes and wires showing. It looked like a ship that had been repaired many times by people who did not have the right parts. Then a face appeared on the screen, and several of Zaraketh's crew members made surprised sounds. The face looked exactly like the old stories, described. It had two eyes that faced forward like a hunter's eyes. The skin was pale with lines that showed stress and worry. The hair was short and brown. This was what humans were supposed to look like. "Captain Morrison," Zaraketh said carefully, "where have you been? Our records show that humans have not been seen in this part of space for over 300 years. The human's face showed surprise and then worry. 300 years, that is not possible. We left Earth maybe 2 years ago. We have been fighting the enemy and running from them, but it has not been that long." "What enemy?" Zaraketh asked. Captain Morrison's face became very serious. "The Devourers. They came to our solar system and destroyed everything. We managed to get away with 7 ships full of people, but Earth is gone. Everyone else is dead." Zaraketh had never heard of the Devourers, but the way the human said the name made her feel cold. There was real fear in his voice and also anger. "Captain Morrison, I think we need to talk more about this. Can you come to our ship, or would you like us to come to yours?" "We would be happy to have visitors," Morrison said. "But I should warn you, our ship is not very comfortable. We have been living in space for a long time and everything is broken or fixed with the wrong parts." "That is fine. We will come to you." The screen went back to showing empty space. Zaraketh looked around, at her crew. They all had the same expression of surprise and confusion. "Commander," Vexitai said quietly, "what if he is telling the truth? What if humans are real, and they have been fighting some enemy we have never heard of?" Zaraketh did not answer right away. She was thinking about all the things this could mean. If humans were real, then all the old stories might be true too. Stories about their fighting skills, their technology, and their strange ability to make friends or enemies very quickly. And if there really was an enemy called the Devourers that could destroy entire planets, then the galaxy might be in more danger than anyone knew. "Get the shuttle ready," she said finally. "We are going to visit our new friends and find out what is really happening out here." As her crew prepared for the visit, Zaraketh looked at the human ship on her screen one more time. It was small and looked damaged, but it was still flying. If the stories were true, humans never gave up, no matter how bad things got. She was about to find out if those stories were real. The shuttle bay doors of the Odyssey opened slowly. Commander Zaraketh could see that the metal was old and had been fixed many times. As her shuttle landed inside the human ship, she noticed how different everything looked. The walls were covered, with pipes and cables that seemed to go everywhere. Nothing matched, like the ship had been built from parts that came from many different places. Captain Jake Morrison was waiting for them when they got out of the shuttle. He was taller than Zaraketh expected, and his clothes looked worn but clean. Behind him stood 3 other humans. One was a woman with long red hair tied back, another was a man with dark skin and worried eyes, and the third was a young woman, who looked very tired. "Welcome to the Odyssey," Morrison said. His voice was the same one they had heard on the radio, but now Zaraketh could see how tired he looked. "I am sorry about the condition of our ship. We have been traveling for a long time with limited supplies." Zaraketh looked around the shuttle bay. The floor was made of metal plates that did not all match. Some were shiny and new, others were dark with age. The air smelled like oil and something else she could not name. Despite how everything looked broken, she could tell that the humans kept their ship very clean. "Captain Morrison, this is Lieutenant Vexitai and Dr. Morges," she said, pointing to her crew members. "We are very interested to learn about your people and your journey." Morrison nodded and pointed to his crew. "This is Dr. Lisa Parker, our science officer. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks handles our weapons and security. And this is Engineer Amy Johnson. She keeps our ship running when it should have stopped working years ago." The woman with red hair, Dr. Parker, stepped forward. "Commander, Zaraketh, we have so many questions. We thought we were the only people left in this part of space. When we heard your ship's signal, we could not believe it." "Where exactly do you think you are?" Zaraketh asked. The humans looked at each other. Morrison pulled out a small device that showed a map of stars. "According to our navigation system, we should be about 50 light years from Earth near the edge of what we call the local group. But your ship's design is not like anything we have ever seen before. Vexatai made a sound that meant surprise, in his language. Captain Morrison, you are over 800 light years from where you think you are, and the local group is what we call the Outer Rim territory. Very few ships go there because it is so far from civilization. The humans stared at him. Dr. Parker's face went very pale. That is impossible, she said. We have only been traveling. For maybe 18 months, our engines cannot go that fast. Captain Morrison, Zaraketh said gently, I think you need to sit down. There are things we need to tell you about where you are and when you are. They walked through the corridors of the human ship. Zaraketh noticed that everything was built for people who were about the same size as humans. The doorways were the right height, and the handholds were where human hands could reach them easily. But she also saw that many things had been changed or fixed. Panels were held on with different kinds of screws, and wires ran along the walls in places where they probably were not supposed to be. They came to a room that Morrison called the briefing room. It had a table and chairs, but also screens on the walls and a device that could show pictures in the air. The humans sat on one side of the table, and Zaraketh's crew sat on the other side. Captain Morrison, Zaraketh began, according to our records, the last time anyone saw humans was over 300 years ago. There were some trading ships that came from the Outer Rim, but then they stopped coming. We thought humans were just stories. Morrison looked at Dr. Parker. She touched some controls, and one of the screens came on. It showed a picture of a blue and green planet with white clouds. This is Earth, she said. Our homeworld. 2 years ago they came. The picture changed to show dark shapes moving between the stars. We call them devourers because that is what they do. They eat everything. Not just the people or the animals, but the life itself. They turn whole planets into empty rocks. Lieutenant Commander Brooks leaned forward. We saw what they did to Mars first. It took them 3 days to strip away everything that lived there. The red dust turned black and the atmosphere just disappeared. Then they started moving toward Earth. How many of your people escaped? Dr. Morges asked. 7 ships, Morrison said quietly. Out of 12 billion people, we got maybe 20,000 away. The Odyssey, 6 colony ships, and a few smaller vessels. We were supposed to meet at a place called Proxima Station, but when we got there, it was gone. Just empty space. Amy Johnson, the engineer, spoke for the first time. Captain, tell them about the jump. Morrison nodded. We were running from a group of devourer ships. They were faster than us and we were running out of options. Our science team detected something they called a gravitational anomaly. Dr. Parker thought it might be a way to escape. Dr. Parker touched the controls again. The screen showed numbers and charts that Zaraketh did not understand. We flew into what looked like empty space, but our instruments were showing impossible readings. Time seemed to slow down and then speed up. The stars outside changed positions. When we came out the other side, everything was different. A temporal anomaly, Vextai said. His voice showed excitement. We have heard of such things, but they are very rare. You were thrown forward in time. 300 years, Morrison said. It was not a question. He understood now. I am afraid. So, Zaraketh said. But Captain Morrison, if what you are telling us is true, then your people may not be the only survivors. You said there were other ships. Brooks nodded. 6 colony ships and some smaller vessels. If they went through the same thing we did, they could be anywhere in space and time. And the Devourers? Zaraketh asked. What happened to them? We do not know, Parker said. They might have followed us through the anomaly, or they might still be back in our time destroying everything they can find. But Commander, these things are not like normal enemies. They do not want to conquer or steal. They want to consume everything that lives. Zaraketh felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Can they be stopped? We learned how to hurt them, Brooks said. But it took everything we had and we barely got away. Our weapons had to be changed completely. Normal energy blasts and missiles did nothing to their ships. Morrison stood up and walked to one of the screens. Commander Zaraketh, we came here looking for help. Our people are tired, our ship is falling apart, and we do not even know if we are the only humans left alive. But if the Devourers are still out there, everyone needs to know about them. Why should we believe you? Vextai asked. You say you are from a species that most people think is just a story. You claim to have fought an enemy no one has ever heard of. How do we know this is not some kind of trick? The humans looked hurt, but Morrison nodded. You're right to question us, but Lieutenant, what would we gain by lying? We need food, fuel, and repairs. We could have just asked for help without telling you about the Devourers. Dr. Parker activated another screen. This one showed pictures of battles. Dark ships firing strange weapons at human vessels. Explosions in space. Ships with parts of their hulls missing still fighting. These are not fake, she said. This is what we lived through. This is why we ran. Zaraketh studied the images, carefully. The human ships in the pictures looked like the Odyssey, but she could see that they had been changed for fighting. Weapons were attached where they did not belong. Armor plating covered parts that were never meant to be protected. These people had turned their peaceful ships into warships very quickly. Captain Morrison, she said finally, whether we believe your story or not, you and your people need help. The Galactic Trade Consortium has rules about helping ships in distress. We will take you to the nearest station where you can get supplies and repairs. Thank you, Morrison said. But Commander, please think about what we have told you. If the Devourers are still out there, if they followed us through time, everyone in the galaxy could be in danger. As they prepared to leave the briefing room, Zaraketh looked at the tired faces of the humans. They had been through something terrible, something that had changed them from peaceful space travelers into warriors. Whether their enemy was real or not, their fear and exhaustion were very real. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered what would happen if they were telling the truth. 3 days later, the Starwind and the Odyssey arrived at Trade Station Alpha 7. It was a huge metal structure that floated in space between 3 different star systems. Ships from all over the galaxy came here to buy supplies, fix their vessels, and share news from distant worlds. When the docking master saw the human ship, he was very confused. The Odyssey did not look like any ship in his computer files. He had to create a new category just to give it a parking space. Captain Morrison and his crew walked through the station's corridors for the first time in over a year. The Odyssey had been their whole world for so long that being around so many different species felt strange. Children from various alien races stopped and stared at the humans with wide eyes. Some adults whispered to each other and pointed. Commander Zaraketh had sent messages ahead to the station commander. She told him about finding the human ship and asked him to prepare guest quarters. She did not tell him everything about the Devourers yet. She wanted to learn more first. Dr. Lisa Parker was amazed by the station's medical facilities. The equipment was far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. A helpful doctor named Kelrath, who looked like a tall bluebird, showed her around the hospital section. Your species has very interesting biology, Kelrath said as he scanned Parker with a medical device. Your healing systems are much better than most species we know, and your brain structure is quite complex. What do you mean? Parker asked. Most species are very good at one or two things. Some are great at mathematics, others are natural fighters, and some can fix any machine. But humans seem to be good at many different things. Your brains can adapt to almost any situation. While Parker learned about galactic medicine, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks was in the station's security office. The security chief, a large creature covered in thick armor plates, was very interested in human fighting methods. Show me these weapon modifications you made, the security chief said. His name was Garthok, and he had been a soldier for most of his life. Brooks activated a portable display and showed pictures of the changes they had made to their ship. The Devourers' ships could absorb normal energy weapons. Lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams, nothing worked. We had to find new ways to hurt them. What did you do? We started using kinetic weapons, old-fashioned bullets and missiles, but moving very fast. We also learned that they did not like certain frequencies of sound and radio waves. Our engineer Amy figured out how to turn our communication systems into weapons. Garthok looked impressed. You turned peaceful tools into military weapons very quickly. Most species take years to develop new fighting methods. We did not have years, Brooke said quietly. We had days, maybe weeks. When something is trying to kill everyone you know, you learn fast. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was in a meeting with Station Commander Veltar and several other important officials. They sat around a large table in a room with windows that looked out at the stars. Captain Morrison, Commander Veltar said, we have been checking our historical records. We found some mentions of human traders from about 300 years ago, but then all records stop. What happened to your people? Morrison had told this story several times now, but it never got easier. We stayed in our own area of space for a long time. We were happy on our worlds and did not feel the need to explore very far. Then the Devourers came. He activated a holographic display that showed the solar system where Earth used to be. This was our home. 9 planets, dozens of moons, space stations, and over 12 billion people. The Devourers destroyed everything in less than 2 weeks. One of the officials, a thin creature with 4 arms, leaned forward. You say they consumed the life on your planets. What exactly does that mean? They did not just kill people, Morrison explained. They took away the life energy itself. Plants stopped growing. Animals died not from injury, but from something being taken out of them. Even the bacteria in the soil disappeared. They left behind empty rocks floating in space. The officials looked at each other with worried expressions. This kind of enemy was not something any of them had heard of before. Captain Morrison, Commander Veltar said, if these Devourers still exist, they could be a threat to everyone in the galaxy. Do you have any proof of what you are telling us? Before Morrison could answer, an alarm started ringing throughout the station. The lights changed from white to yellow, which meant there was an emergency but not immediate danger. A voice came over the communication system. Attention, all personnel. We have detected 3 unknown ships approaching the station. They are not responding to our signals. Morrison felt his heart start beating faster. Commander Veltar, can we see these ships? They moved to the main control room, where large screens showed the space around the station. 3 ships were moving toward them, but they looked different from any ships Morrison had ever seen. They were long and dark, with strange curves that hurt to look at for too long. Those are not human ships, Morrison said. But they are not Devourer ships either. The largest of the 3 ships sent a message to the station. The voice that came through the speakers sounded tired and hopeful, just like Morrison's had 3 days earlier. Trade Station Alpha 7, this is Captain Susan Wells of the Earth colony ship New Boston. We are requesting permission to dock. We have civilian refugees who need medical attention. Morrison stared at the screen. Susan Wells, he said quietly. She was supposed to take the agricultural colonist to Kepler 442. She made it. You know this person? Commander Veltar asked. She was one of the other ship captains in the evacuation fleet. If she is here, then maybe the others made it too. The B. Second ship sent its own message. Station Alpha 7. This is Commander Pete Harrison of the passenger ship Liberty Bell. We have over 4,000 civilians aboard, including many children. We need supplies and fuel. Morrison felt tears in his eyes. Pete Harrison had been a cruise ship captain before the Devourers came. When the evacuation started, he volunteered to take his passenger ship and fill it with as many people as possible. The Khan, third ship, was smaller than the others. Its message was shorter. This is Captain Danny Walsh of the transport vessel Frontier. We have wounded aboard and request immediate medical assistance. Commander Veltar looked at Morrison. Captain, it seems your people are not as lost as you thought. Within 2 hours, all 3 human ships had docked at the station. The corridors were filled with humans seeing each other for the first time since they escaped Earth. There were tears, laughter, and long hugs as families and friends found each other again. Captain Wells was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Her ship had been carrying farmers, scientists, and engineers who were supposed to start new colonies on distant worlds. Instead, they had been wandering through space for what felt like 2 years, but had actually been 3 centuries. Jake, she said when she saw Morrison. I thought we were the only ones left. We went through something strange near the Vega system. Time seemed to stop, and when it started again, all the stars had moved. Commander Harrison was a big man with a loud voice who had kept over 4,000 civilians alive on a ship that was only supposed to hold 2,000. His passengers included whole families, teachers, doctors, and artists. They had turned the passenger ship into a small city. Captain Walsh was young and looked very tired. His ship carried the wounded and sick people who could not travel on the larger vessels. He had been a medical transport pilot before the war, and he had saved hundreds of lives during the evacuation. Dr. Parker worked with the station's medical team to help the new arrivals. Many humans were sick from living in space for so long on ships that were not designed for extended travel. But she was amazed at how well they had survived. These people have adapted to conditions that would kill most species, she told Dr. Kellerath. They have turned cargo ships into homes, passenger ships into cities, and medical transports into hospitals. They never stopped trying to survive. As the day went on, Morrison learned more about what the other ships had been through. Each group had found different ways to survive. The New Boston had become experts at growing food in space and recycling everything they used. The Liberty Bell had organized its passengers into a working community where everyone had a job. The Frontier had developed new medical techniques for treating people in zero gravity. But they all had the same story about how they got here. Each ship had encountered some kind of space-time anomaly while running from the Devourers. Each had been thrown forward in time by 300 years. That evening, Morrison stood in the station's observation deck with the other human captains. They were looking out at their 4 ships docked together for the first time since leaving Earth. "Jake," Captain Wells said, "what do we do now? We have nearly 15,000 people across our 4 ships. They need homes, not just temporary shelter." "And what about the others?" Commander Harrison added. "There were 7 ships in the evacuation fleet. We have found 4. Where are the other 3? Morrison did not have answers to these questions yet. But for the first time since leaving Earth, he felt hope. They were not alone anymore. Humanity had survived, and they were together again. Word about the human ships spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within 1 week, Trade Station Alpha 7 was crowded with visitors from dozens of different worlds. Some came because they were curious about the legendary humans. Others came because they were worried about what this might mean for the galaxy. Captain Morrison found himself in meetings every day with representatives from various alien governments. His small quarters on the station were always full of diplomats, scientists, and military officers who wanted to ask questions about humans and their technology. Ambassador Trelvik arrived on the 3rd day. He was from the Hegemony Council, a group of species that controlled trade in the northern part of the galaxy. Trelvik was tall and thin, with purple skin and eyes that never seemed to blink. He wore expensive clothes and spoke in a voice that made everything sound like a threat. "Captain Morrison," Trelvik said during their first meeting, "my government is concerned about these refugees you have brought into our space. How do we know you are really who you say you are? How do we know you are not spies or invaders pretending to be the mythical humans?" Morrison was getting tired of this question. "Ambassador, what would we gain by pretending? We need food, fuel, and places for our people to live. We are not hiding weapons or trying to take over anything, but you claim to have fought an enemy that no one has ever heard of," Trelvik continued. "These devourers you speak of could be a story you made up to make us feel sorry for you." Dr. Parker, who was sitting next to Morrison, activated a portable screen. "Ambassador, would you like to see the battle recordings? We have hours of video showing what the Devourers did to our worlds." Trelvik watched the recordings with growing unease. The images showed dark ships destroying everything they touched, planets turning from green and blue to black and empty. But when the videos ended, he just shook his head. These could be fake. Computer graphics have become very advanced. Anyone could make videos like this. Morrison felt anger building inside him, but he kept his voice calm. "Ambassador, 15,000 people do not spend 2 years living in broken ships just to fool you. Look at our vessels. Look at our people. Do we look like we are pretending to be refugees?" Before Trelvik could answer, another visitor arrived. Chancellor Morgan of the Trade Federation was a short, round creature covered in golden fur. Unlike Trelovic, Morgan seemed very excited to meet the humans. "Captain Morrison," Morgan said with a big smile, "my government would like to offer your people a very good deal. We will provide food, fuel, and temporary housing for all your refugees. In exchange, we would like you to share your military technology with us." "What kind of military technology?" Morrison asked. "The weapon modifications you made to fight these devourers. Our military experts have looked at your ships and they are very impressed. You turned civilian vessels into warships in just a few weeks. Our enemies in the outer colonies have been giving us trouble, and we could use weapons like yours." Morrison exchanged looks with Dr. Parker. They had talked about this possibility. "Chancellor Morgan, we did not develop those weapons to help one group fight another group. We made them to survive against an enemy that wanted to destroy all life. But surely you understand that we need to defend ourselves," Morgan said, "and your people need homes. We can help each other." A third group arrived that afternoon. They came in ships that were twice the size of anything else at the station. The Zenkari Collective was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, and they did not usually involve themselves in refugee situations. General Kexthul was the collective's representative. He was huge, even for his species, with thick armor-like skin and forearms that ended in claws. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Humans," he said, looking at Morrison with eyes like black stones. "We have heard that you claim to be warriors. The collective wishes to test this claim." "We are not warriors by choice," Morrison replied. "We became fighters because we had to." "Show us," General Kexthul said. "Send your best fighters to compete against ours. If you prove yourselves worthy, the collective will consider giving your people a place in our territory." Morrison felt uncomfortable with this request. "General, our people are tired refugees, not gladiators. We do not want to fight for entertainment." "Everything is a fight," Kexthul said. "If you cannot prove your strength, you do not deserve to survive." While Morrison dealt with the politics, Captain Wells was having her own problems. The agricultural scientists on her ship had been studying the food supplies at the station, and they found some troubling information. "Jake," she told Morrison during a private meeting, "the crop yields in this part of the galaxy are falling. The soil on most farming worlds is losing nutrients and no one knows why. Our people might be able to help, but we would need access to their agricultural systems." "What do you mean?" Morrison asked. "We developed new farming techniques while we were running from the devourers. We learned how to grow food in places where nothing should be able to live. We could help these people feed their populations better." Morrison realized that this could be important. If humans could help solve food problems, the alien governments might be more willing to accept human refugees. Commander Harrison was dealing with different issues. The families on his ship were getting restless. They had been living in cramped conditions for a long time, and the children needed room to play and grow. "Captain Morrison," Harrison said, "my people are asking hard questions. They want to know if we are going to find permanent homes or if we will be traveling forever. Some of the families are talking about taking smaller ships and trying to find empty planets on their own." This worried Morrison. If the human group split up again, they would be much weaker. They needed to stay together, but they also needed to find real homes for their people. The situation became more complicated when Dr. Parker made a discovery. She had been working with the station's science team to analyze data from their journey through the time anomaly. What she found was disturbing. "Jake," she said, showing him readings on her computer, "I have been studying the energy signatures we recorded during our time jump. I am picking up similar readings from deep space sensors throughout this region." "What does that mean?" "It means the time anomalies are still active. More ships might be coming through or something else might be using them to travel." Morrison felt a cold fear in his stomach. "Could the devourers have followed us?" "I do not know," Parker said, "but we need to be prepared for that possibility." That night, Morrison called a meeting with all the human ship captains. They met in a private room away from the alien diplomats and politicians. "We have a problem," Morrison told them. Actually, we have several problems. Some of the alien governments want to use us. Others do not trust us. And there is a chance that the Devourers might have followed us through time. Captain Wells leaned forward. What do you think we should do? I think we need to make a choice, Morrison said. We can split up and try to find homes with different alien governments, or we can stick together and try to find our own solution. What kind of solution? Commander Harrison asked. I do not know yet, but I think our best chance is to prove that we can be valuable partners, not just refugees who need help. Captain Walsh, who had been quiet during most political discussions, finally spoke up. Jake, what if we are wrong about the Devourers? What if they are gone and we are worrying about nothing? Morrison looked out the window at the stars. Danny, I hope you are right. But if you are wrong, and they are coming, then everyone in this galaxy needs to be ready. The next morning brought news that changed everything. The station's long-range sensors had detected ships approaching from the edge of the system. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the galactic databases, but they were similar to readings from the human time anomaly. Morrison looked at the sensor data with growing excitement and fear. The approaching ships were sending signals in old Earth languages. More human survivors were coming home. But mixed in with the human signals were other transmissions. Dark, empty signals that made the station's computers crash when they tried to analyze them. Morrison realized that their time of quiet politics and diplomatic meetings was over. The Devourers had found them, and the galaxy was about to learn whether the stories about human determination were true. The emergency alarms on Trade Station Alpha 7 had been ringing for 6 hours. Captain Morrison stood in the main control room, watching the sensor displays with growing worry. 3 more human ships had arrived, but they were not alone. Captain Morrison, Station Commander Veltar said, his voice tight with fear. We are detecting 17 ships following behind your people. The energy readings are unlike anything we have ever seen. Morrison looked at the dark shapes on the screen. He had hoped he would never see ships like these again. Those are Devourer scouts, he said quietly. The main fleet will not be far behind. The 3 new human ships were badly damaged. Captain Frank Miller of the Colony Transport New Hope had barely made it to the station. His ship was missing entire sections, and emergency force fields were the only things keeping air inside. Commander Beth Turner of the research vessel Discovery was unconscious in the medical bay. Her ship had been running on emergency power for weeks. The 3rd ship, a small cargo hauler called the Pathfinder, was piloted by a young woman named Carol Adams, who looked like she had not slept in days. They have been chasing us for months, Adams told Morrison when she was finally able to speak. Every time we thought we lost them, they found us again. They followed us right through the time anomaly. Dr. Parker was working frantically with the station's science team to analyze the Devourer ships. Jake, she said, these scouts are different from the ones we fought before. They have adapted. Our old weapons might not work against them. The political situation on the station became chaos. Ambassador Trelvik demanded that the humans leave immediately, taking the Devourers with them. Chancellor Morgan wanted to use the human ships as bait to lure the Devourers into a trap. General Kexthul talked about fighting the enemy head-on, even though no one knew if conventional weapons would work. We need to evacuate the station, Trelvik said during an emergency meeting. These humans have brought destruction to our space. They should never have been allowed here. Morrison felt anger rising in his chest. Ambassador, running away will not solve anything. If the Devourers are here, they will not stop with this station. They will keep consuming until there is nothing left. Then what do you suggest? Commander Veltar asked. Morrison looked around the room at all the alien officials. Some looked scared, others looked angry, and a few looked ready to fight. I suggest we work together. Humans have fought these things before. We know some of their weaknesses, but we cannot do it alone. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Maybe you will not have to. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Chen Wei entering the room. She was an older human woman who had been in stasis aboard the Liberty Bell during their long journey. Before the Devourers came, she had been Earth's chief diplomat to the outer colonies. Ambassador Chen, Morrison said with relief. I am glad you are awake. Chenwei looked tired but determined. Captain Morrison, I have been reviewing the political situation here. It seems our arrival has caused quite a stir. These aliens want to use us or get rid of us, Morrison said. They do not understand what we are up against. Chenwei nodded and turned to address the room. Representatives of the Galactic Consortium, I propose a deal. Humanity will share everything we know about fighting the Devourers. We will help you prepare defenses and train your people. In exchange, you will give our refugees citizenship and homes in your space. What guarantee do we have that you can actually help us? Trelvik demanded. Before Chenwei could answer, another alarm started ringing. The Devourer scouts were moving closer to the station. On the main screen, everyone could see the dark ships getting larger. Let us show you, Morrison said. He contacted the other human ships and gave orders that he hoped would not get everyone killed. The 4 human warships undocked from the station and moved out to meet the approaching scouts. The human ships looked tiny compared to the dark Devourer vessels, but Morrison knew that size was not everything in space combat. The Odyssey, New Boston, Liberty Bell, and Frontier formed a loose formation and activated their modified weapons. All human ships, Morrison said over the radio. Remember what we learned. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and do not let them get close enough to drain our power. The first Devourer scout fired a weapon that looked like black lightning. It struck the New Boston, and everyone watching from the station could see the ship's lights begin to dim. But Captain Wells was ready. Her ship spun around and fired a volley of kinetic projectiles, simple metal slugs moving at incredible speed. The projectiles punched through the Devourer ship's hull and dark fluid began leaking into space. The Liberty Bell used a different approach. Commander Harrison had turned his passenger ship's entertainment systems into a powerful radio transmitter. He broadcast specific frequencies that Dr. Parker had discovered would disrupt Devourer communications. The enemy ships began moving in confused patterns, like they could not coordinate their attacks anymore. The Frontier and the Odyssey worked together, using their modified engines to create electromagnetic pulses that interfered with Devourer sensors. Then they hit the confused enemy ships with everything they had. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, 12 of the 17 Devourer scouts were destroyed. The remaining 5 retreated toward the edge of the system, but they were badly damaged. The human ships returned to the station with minor damage and no casualties. Everyone watching from the station was amazed. They had just seen 4 refugee ships defeat an enemy that none of them had ever heard of before. How did you do that? General Kex Thule asked when Morrison returned to the control room. We learned to think differently, Morrison explained. The Devourers are used to fighting enemies who use energy weapons and follow standard battle tactics. We use kinetic weapons, sound waves, and electromagnetic interference. We do not fight like everyone else because we are not like everyone else. Ambassador Chenwei saw the impressed looks on the alien faces. Gentlemen, this is what humanity can offer the galaxy. We do not just bring refugees who need help. We bring new ways of thinking, new solutions to old problems. But there will be more Devourers coming, Dr. Parker added. The scouts will report back to the main fleet. We need to prepare for a much bigger fight. Over the next few days, everything changed. The various alien governments stopped arguing about what to do with the human refugees and started asking how they could help prepare for the Devourer invasion. The Hegemony Council offered to provide ships and weapons. The Trade Federation shared their industrial resources to help modify more vessels for the coming battle. Even the Zenkari Collective agreed to work with the humans to develop new fighting techniques. Captain Wells and her agricultural team were invited to help solve food shortages on farming worlds throughout the galaxy. Commander Harrison's people began teaching other species how to organize large groups of civilians during emergencies. The human engineers shared their knowledge of fixing ships with whatever materials were available. But Morrison knew that the real test was still coming. The Devourer main fleet would arrive eventually, and it would be much larger than anything humanity had faced before. 2 weeks later, Dr. Parker came to Morrison with news he had been dreading. Jake, the deep space sensors are detecting massive Energy signatures moving toward this sector. Based on the size and number of the signals, I estimate we are looking at over 200 Devourer ships. Morrison looked out at the growing fleet of human and alien ships that were preparing for battle. They had 60 vessels now, all modified with human-designed weapons and tactics. It was more firepower than humanity had ever commanded, but it might not be enough. "Doctor," he said, "send a message to all the human colony ships that are still out there. Tell them we have found a new home, but we are going to have to fight for it." As he watched the mixed fleet of human and alien ships practicing their formations, Morrison realized something important. Humanity was not just returning to the galaxy as refugees or legends. They were becoming partners in the fight for everyone's survival. The radar had shown that humans were real, not myths. Now the galaxy would learn what that really meant when the darkness came calling.